I think of culture fit when we do interview people. We tell them what our mission statement is, your health above all else. And then we have 5 core values, and we explain that to the employee and what their hours are. And then we want to see, we ask them, I was telling them, what do you know about Revere? And many of them don't know anything, but yet they've applied. So how do I know if they're going to fit the culture or not? So that's something that I would tell them. You need to look up information about the job you're applying for. That's huge for me.
Yeah, I would only add one thing, that when people are asking about, hey, what do you think about our culture, or they're talking about the company culture, they're really looking for cues from the candidate of what is going to disrupt that culture or is going to enhance it for the better. Depending on what's happening at the company, they may want someone who will disrupt the culture, they may not. But that's really the key for candidates to remember when they're talking about culture in the interview process.
I think culture is huge. I think that's where most of the friction comes from when people are working. So most people are qualified for jobs, or they can learn the skills that they need in order to perform in a task. But culture is where that friction is going to come in, whether they really enjoy the job or not, enjoy the environment they're in. So, and it's from both sides. So people have to conform to a culture, and then a company needs to provide a good culture for people to want to stay there for a part there. And I know in the startup world, which is where I'm mostly at, it's huge, because starting a company is a grind and it's really hard. So you got to have that kind of mentality and fit within that kind of culture in order to make it work.
Excellent. One thing I have real quick, if there's 3 top people that we've narrowed it down to, when you talk about culture, I'm thinking who is going to fit with that particular department? Because it's, if they have the same qualifications, we want the one that we think will fit. And that's really important. And you don't get that friction.
Yeah.
All right. What impresses you most on a resume, and then possibly least?
For me, on the resume, it's experience. I look at what they've done, where they've worked, the bullet points of things they've been able to accomplish. That's where I go to look at resumes. So, you kind of glance over, the educational requirements and those types of things. So for me, it's what they've been able to accomplish, in detail, what they have there. Probably what's least is that little sidebar thing of, skills I have, like Microsoft Office. That's right. That is like, okay, that's wasted space to me.
I would agree with that. And, I think on the resume, the more facts that you have that can be verifiable, if someone says, hey, tell me about this situation, what did you do? And if they can throw out some facts saying, hey, I was able to improve this by however many percent, verifiable facts are always very impressive. And that's mostly, I would say, what people look at when they're asking candidates about experience and things like that.
I think with me, I'll start with the least is grammar.
Punctuation.
Yeah, I'm like, don't you read that?
Yeah.
They were so nervous.
I know, but anyway, that's what's important to me. I like to look at experience, but I like to look at the candidate and see maybe we can train. We also, because it's not all healthcare. We've got receptionists, guest relations people, HR people. So a lot of this we can train. Some people think, well, like say I work for Revere. Oh, what are you, a nurse? I'm like, no. For the longest time, my kids thought I was. I'm not a nurse. Don't tell people I'm a nurse. So.
I think for me, the most important aspect, and I echo everything they're saying here, but they have to have concise and clear explanation of their job duties. Like, tell us what you really did, but don't say, don't fluff it. Like, just try to give us that clear, to the point, what you did, and be accurate. Like, give us clear dates, give us clear facts of your jobs and tasks and what you. I love the accomplishments part, because it tells us what you actually meaningfully brought to the company, and that's really telling, because it's like, okay, you say you're over, for me, I do safety, so I'm over safety, and that's all you did. Well, if you were to say I did safety, but I reduced our overall workers' comp claims by 60% this year, that's a telling aspect of your oversight of that job. So I really agree with that.
Yeah. So the resume into the interviewing process, I don't know if we'll go there, but so I used to work for Boeing, and they had a very structured interview process, right? Because they're a huge corporation. So their structured interview booklet was always phrased in such a way that the candidate needed to describe the situation they were in, what they did about it, and what the outcome was. So your resume hopefully will lead your interviewer into that area where you can discuss those things. And so when people are filling out their resume, they should think about that. Okay, what situation was I in? What did I do about it? And then the outcomes. So I'm sure we'll talk about interviewing later.
That's the STAR method. If you've heard that, it's the situation, your task or your tactics, your action, your activity, and then your results. This is exactly that model. So that's
Great.
perfect.
So our students,
Yeah.
we try to prepare, we do our mock interviews with them and things. So as they're preparing, what interview questions do you ask that candidates are least prepared for? So what can we prepare them with?
I do one. I say, I use a lot of behavioral, so I get the situational, not just yes or no.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I say to them after in the middle, I say, so why should I hire you?
Hey, that was mine.
Sorry.
Wait a minute, I love that one.
I was like, why should I pick you over all the
Yes,
other
all the
candidates?
others.
What set
They
you
kind of
apart?
go,
And then,
oh.
yeah, that's what you get a lot.
That's a selling question right there, though. They got to sell them.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
It's amazing how many people struggle with explaining why they're looking for a new job. Like, it's hard to for them to explain the change. It could be a transition. You could have been fired, you could have had a new job, layoff, whatever. You want to grow, it's fine, but you just need to be able to wrap your brain around what that means to you as a candidate and be able to communicate that. And people really struggle with being able to say why they're looking for a new job.
I think they're afraid to say, I got fired from my last job.
It didn't work out. You can
Yeah.
word
work
it,
out.
right?
Yeah.
But they struggle to communicate that.
Have something prepared.
Yeah.
Well, with the comment to culture, right now, I watch this with my own kids. When I ask my son a question, my 11-year-old, I ask him a question, or my 17-year-old, and I say, what do you think about this? I can see it in their eyes. They're trying to figure out what answer I want them to give me back. And that, I think, is one of the biggest things, is to help your students be prepared,
Mhm.
is to get them to talk authentically from their own point of view, because that is going to speak, that you can feel the difference when they're trying to tell you what they think you want to hear. One of the questions I like to ask the type of questions that gets them kind of telling an answer to something bigger without them knowing it. So one of the questions I like to ask is, if you became a superhero and you could choose between flight or invisibility, which superpower would you choose? Because that kind of tells you who's going to be your leaders, who's going to really be comfortable with being out front, taking on new challenges, and who likes to be the support behind the scenes, working, pushing, doing the grind, daily work type of thing. And there's a bunch of questions out there that you can find that tell those kinds of personality traits without you asking them flat out. So do you like to be behind the scenes? Or, it helps. It makes it a little bit more lighthearted at the same time. That's great.
So I always want to find out a situation where the candidate had failed and what they did to overcome that.
Mhm.
The trick to that is everybody's like, well, my greatest weakness is I work too hard. They're always trying to turn it around to where it's actually a strength. But what I really want is a situation where they failed, but they were able to handle it. I'm okay if, hey, came out this and it didn't work out, this other person left the company, or I did, that's fine. I just want to see the process that they go through in order to overcome that failure, what they did.
Yeah.
I think that's, most of our growth and most of our, when we stretch ourselves is when we fail. So I think that's very telling if you can find a good opportunity where, yeah, I failed at this task, but this is what I did to get out of that.
I think a lot of that works into open-ended questions,
Mhm.
and let them be. If there's silence, I think that's okay. I just say take a minute, so because they're formulating their thoughts. So I kind of like when when I'm really digging in. I want them to give me the real stuff, not the fluff.
Right. The surface.
I like when they're just what Jason says, when they are willing to admit that mistake. That's telling about what kind of person you're going to be working with. If they're open to saying, yeah, I fell short. I'm a person that says you fell short. Let's learn from that. Let's learn from that, and let's find a way to move beyond it and not do that again. Or let's see how we can learn from that experience and become stronger. That's my kind of style. And, when someone's unwilling to recognize them, because, okay, who's perfect, right? Let's be honest, no one. So, when they're unwilling or they're uncomfortable sharing that level of openness. It's not necessarily negative, it's just not a plus. Does that make sense? Like, it's more of a bonus when they are willing and open. But I love the behavioral questions more than anything. And one thing that I've seen in my experience is that you have to let them speak. You have to let them be the talking party of this conversation. Not that you're the only one, right? It's a conversation, but you don't want to dominate that because you're trying to learn about them. They should already have the learn about us, and you can do a synopsis about us first, but the goal is to have them tell you. So helping your students learn that sharing and open dialogue is going to be really beneficial. Because if they sit there and they're kind of like, just not sure how to communicate, then they're not going to be able to sell themselves. And that's what the interview is, sell, right? And so they need to be open enough to say, I need to get out of my shell. I need to get out of this, comfort zone and be willing to talk about myself. So then maybe an example would be having a forum or a moment where you train each of your students to discuss themselves, create your story, because the story is really what will help them share, right? What's your story and where you want to go? And then they can practice with each other or yourself or whoever, because that'll really open them up. And that's what we want to see, that communication is open.
And I think, I was just going to say, I think that is key, is practicing what they should say. Because when I first started doing sales, when the market crashed, I quit my job, or our job, we all got laid off, and I had to go take up a sales job. And I thought, oh, I'm going to sell this. And I had only read through the material. And then when I went in to talk about it, I totally messed it all up. I messed up everything, and nothing came out from my head what I was thinking. And so I think if you give them opportunities to practice talking about themselves, their skills, their talents, their accountability levels, that is going to help them probably with the soft skills the most in these interviews, in what Andrew was saying. I love that.
Do mock interviews. Do you ever have them in a group? Because when you've got people there, even if they're fellow students, they still feel a little bit uncomfortable. So you say, well, end of the week, we're going to do mock interviews. So everyone be ready.
Group is good. That's great that you mentioned that. It does help them see other students who are progressing in it and are outgoing, and then they have a great answer, and then they can, use them as a mentor. That's great.
And you can practice. I love the idea that came to my mind, but I would say practice and come up with that, but then throw in a question they're not prepared for. Because reality is, an interview is you have it's all prepped, but then all of a sudden it's like, tell me about this widget over here. Oh. So having them experience that minute of will be helpful for them, so that when they come into that scenario again, they'll already have kind of worked through that a little bit in their mind.
And part of the practice, I think, and preparation for an interview is, so you're going to this person to say, I can add value to your company. I can add value to your bottom line. So that's what you need to convey in the interview. So if I'm going to interview for Revere Health, I really should know what Revere Health is. I should do my research, find out what they do, how they do it, where I think I could add value. Because I've interviewed a lot of people that come in and did you even go to our website? No, I didn't. It's well, okay, that tells me how much you really want this job.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great. I have done a lot of mock interviews over the years, and I have never thought of asking that question. Are you a follower? Or are you a leader? That's always the way you state it, and they're going to, of course, have the shiny answer. I'm both, or I'm a leader, but I can follow instructions. They have that. But the way you put that, Becky, I love that you have a different type of scenario where we can figure out if they're a leader or a follower or not. And I like that, the open-ended, questions as well. I mean, those are some things that I really, everything I ask them, they can pretty much say yes or no, or one word, leader, and so this is a good way to have them explain.
One last thing about interviews is there are going to be weird interview questions asked. So these kids, you want them to be prepared to answer a random question that just doesn't even make sense, and just kind of be able to hone in and just focus on them and say, it's like, what color are you? What does that even mean? There's so many different tests, and so many colors mean different things. So it doesn't mean anything. So it's like, oh, what color are you? It's like, I'm a blue, but let me tell you about what I've been able to accomplish in this aspect that relates to your business.
This day and age, we might have to say color card
Or, yeah, or whatever, but I mean,
Well, it's almost like debate techniques, right?
Yeah.
Where you're given a question, but you want to answer the question that wasn't given, right? That you want to
Right.
answer,
Yeah.
right? So you learn how to
So
twist
you're
it and go
subject
through there. And that's where the
That's-
practice comes in.
that's higher level, of course, but
Yeah.
the reality is that's there.
Yeah.
And so just having the exposure of it and just being aware that you're going to interview, and some people just ask really just odd questions.
But you should be careful of the legal questions. You can't ask,
Yeah,
are they
they
married?
are,
Do they
yeah.
have kids?
Nope. you
Oh,
don't
you
want
know, or do
When did
speak
you
a different
graduate? You
language?
can't ask
Yeah,
questions that relate to age.
coming from
And don't be
HR
afraid
person.
to have them take
Yeah.
notes and pause and think about it. I'm totally fine if somebody wants to pause or take notes while I ask a question. That to me that means they're being attentive. So,
Also, always have questions ready to ask,
oh yeah,
because you want to be the one who's also, as a student, okay, I'm not speaking as the interviewee, right? You want to be the one who's also asking questions. It's not just one-sided, let me tell you everything about me, and then do you have any questions? No, thanks. No, you want to say, tell me something about your culture. Let's see what they say. You can ask a similar question that was asked in the interview earlier, or during the interview, say, tell me about your, what you feel like this. And they go, well, let me ask you, what is your culture like? You can actually do that and make it become more conversational. And those interviews really shine a lot better, because now it's not just a tell me, answer, that's kind of having some sort of question or dialogue to raise really helps show interest and engagement. And then also saying, what's the next step? What would you like to see from me for the next step? So that way you're kind of like, as an interviewee, they're saying, hey, I'm also portraying I'm interested in this position after we've just spoken, without saying I want the job. You could say that, that's great. I mean, everyone would appreciate that. I'd love to work here. But asking questions is showing that interest, and that's another level of quality in the interview.
Okay, before we finish this interview process, because we're going to move on, are there any questions from the audience that you might have after hearing this?
How often do you do online interviews, like through Zoom or?
a lot more lately.
Yeah. There's actually a company called HireView. They're based out of South Jordan, Utah. They help companies all over the world hire. And IHC does this a lot, where they'll say, we're going to send you an email, you need to do a video interview, and it's recorded, and then you submit it. So you can record it twice and send in the best one that you want to send in. And that's happening more and more, where you're not even talking to an individual, you're talking to yourself on a camera. And so that's one of the things, is to tell your students to be camera ready when they're getting ready to do interviews, those kinds of things. And also, as people are interviewing, we have to remember the different cultures that are coming up. And when I say that, this is a group that's been raised on reality television series shows. They've been raised on TikTok. They're coming up and they want the instant gratification, the gaming. And so as we ask questions as business leaders, understanding that, helping them feel like they're not on the latest episode of, I know this is a school, so H Word's Kitchen, and Gordon Ramsay's going to pop out and scream at them. You don't want them to feel like that when they come to an interview. And I think they kind of equivocate that when they're interviewing for a
Great
job.
question. Any more questions? Yes.
For Becky, is there some practice recorded interviews we could get for our kids? Is there somewhere we can go see what those look like so we can help them train for that?
I believe HireView might have some sample interviews on their website. I can actually reach out to them and ask them and see if I can get some resources for you guys.
And then I have a second question. When you're doing in-person interviews, are they wearing masks? I mean, I'm just fairly scholar advisor as well as workplace learning from here. I'm trying to train these kids how to interview. Do you have them take their mask off? Do they wear their mask? Is that hard to interview because you can't see their expression? Can you give me some tips on that?
My experience is that it really is difficult to understand your facial expressions. Obviously, right? Covered up, can't see what I'm doing right now. And I have done multiple interviews where, keeping the distance, if you have open space, that's great. I'll actually pop my face so you can see my face, because I want them to see that I can smile and I'm not just a drone behind it, But depends on the individual. I kind of want to we want to be very cautious on our space. Like we mostly do video interviews right now because of that. But when we do in person, we'll try to do a spatial gap. So that way we could have a little bit more comfort there. It's hard though. I'll tell you that I had an interview with someone and I'm trying to be cheerful and smiling and all this stuff. And they were deadpan the entire time. And I'm just totally I was totally blown away by it. And I was like, what is going on here? And it's because they can't see my facial expression. So they can't see that things are going well. So for all they know, things are just going through the bottom floor. And so it's really challenging.
Yeah.
It just kind of depends on the individual, I think, and how your business organization is and how they set their practices.
Question over here.
I just had a question. Do you guys do group interviews anymore?
We did just the other day, and we were in the conference room. So she's at the end of the conference room, and then we're on the other end of the table. So as we talked, we took our mask off, not all of us, but we gave her that option. If you want to take your mask off, we're more than 6 feet away from you.
But what about, I'm thinking outside of the mask stuff, like what are you looking at, like in a group interview, how do we prepare our students to maybe be part of a group interview? Because I think we're always practicing one-on-one. I just want to know how common they are and how we prepare them
We
for
do.
that.
Are you asking like a group of candidates
Yes.
to one person, or are you saying one candidate to a
I'm thinking
panel?
A group of candidates that you are looking at and you're interviewing all the candidates at one time.
That ever happened?
I haven't heard that happening. I know it used to. That hasn't happened. I think they've kind of moved away from that because they want to focus on one candidate at a time.
Okay,
That's
what I wanted.
But we'll have like 4 or 5 people that work with us
Oh, yeah.
in the interview, but we've never done that either.
Okay.
Yeah.
We kind of
different
stopped doing the
departments.
group thing because what we found, because we do entry level labor, like simple entry jobs. We can do that. We do all the way up to the C-suite. But we found that the groups really didn't bring a lot of value because you have 10 people, but you're looking to see if people are interacting, but they aren't. Does that mean that they're not qualified though? And we're not trying to say no because we need more than one. It's not like we're just doing one opening. So and we've moved away from that. I think probably like 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, we've stopped kind of
I
doing
thought
that
and I
model.
didn't know if they still did that or not, but
That's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question.
All right, we have one in the middle.
Kind of 2 questions side by side. What is the number one no or error stuff that you see on applications, resumes, and feel free to be honest. Where are kids lacking? Where's education failing? That is your biggest struggle? Saying kids just don't have what I need.
If I may, my experience is that they just kind of they write what they say, they speak, and so then it's like, oh, I did this, and the way they write it is literally just as if they just spoke it onto the paper.
Talk to text.
Yeah.
And they are probably using talk to text. Let's be honest, it's probably true. My kid's doing it, and I'm like, so it's probably more of a way they're communicating, and not necessarily as much the grammar part, but just the fact that they're doing more of a speak to text instead of saying, hey, this is a document, and this is more of a formalized thing. So let me make sure I use a formalized means of communication in my wording.
And not too many bullets. They get lost. You give me about 5 and then have something to back that. For example, if I was interviewing someone I asked someone for 16 years and I did their collections. So if I'm hiring someone and they say, oh, I've collected, I've done that. I said, well, where did you work before? And how were you the best collector? And they said, well, it was my dad owned the company. Well, of course you're going to be the best collector. So whatever you put on there, I want proof or
Be ready.
Yeah.
the facts, yeah.
Grammar is the most glaring thing. Like and it could be as simple as a misspelling, and people make mistakes, but this is a resume. This is your first opportunity, right? You never get a second chance at a first impression, and that one a misspelling just like pops out at me.
It's amazing to
like
jump
that.
out the page. It's like, boom, there it is.
It does to me because I'm looking for that more formalized, resume or speech, more
Fancy
professional.
and frou-frou. Do you guys like the picture on it? I don't care for a picture.
It also, the CV with the picture,
No, yeah.
it's different.
I could take
Yeah, I
it.
don't. Well,
I actually
think that
think
depends
that's-
what you're going for. So, like my CV, I have my picture on it, but I would
You're way
be
up
looking for executive positions, right? So that might be a little bit different than.
Well, and it's also a risk, right? Because if they put if you put your picture on your resume and you're looking for like an entry position, that picture could be a determining factor, and you don't want that as an HR representative to say, hey, I didn't like this person because of their skill set, but then their picture's there and maybe they fall under a protected class.
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden you have to run risk of, I got to be careful because I don't want them to get the impression that my decision was based on their protected class. My decision is based on their experience. And so honestly, I prefer not having the picture. I prefer not having on there.
I just got indication that if
It
somebody
protects
from the
them.
audience asks a question, let's restate it up here so that
Oh.
especially our audience
yes.
out there can hear, because we can hear it here, but, all right.
Good.
So were
We're
you
picking up pretty
guys
good though.
good on, one more question? Okay.
She said, I'm gonna brag a little bit. I have my students for the past 5 years create a digital cover letter they video themselves, and it's a 60-second spot. And I've had 2 students who got jobs off that because they could send it digitally and attach it to a digital resume. And now they can just find it on there. They can talk, they can highlight what they've done. Some of them would have a crop of their high school experience. I had one girl at work, her scrub for a stethoscope and named that she was a CNA and what she's done, where she's worked. And that was one thing we talked about when they, with COVID especially, it's a way to, I thought, and I think it's been successful in getting them put in the door for action. Right. And you can Google digital cover letters and see a lot. L'Oreal has them, Disney has them, Jimmy Fallon did a little spill. A guy got an internship with Jimmy Fallon once because of the digital cover letter he shot off. And I use that one as an example a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right. And way back.
Just one quick question. We just heard that resumes are dead. But I heard all of you talk about them. How many of you go to LinkedIn to find candidates, especially entry level, because that's where our kids are coming from?
I don't.
So
Our job gets posted there, that career
Yeah.
website and link, but I don't look at it. I just look on our HRIS system.
I think that hiring managers would probably, look at the final group of candidates. Maybe they go on LinkedIn and look at them. It probably will take more of a space in there. Paper stuff is going away, but I think that having a resume you can email off and not just rely on a LinkedIn profile, because not all industries are going to discount LinkedIn. Not all industries are going to discount a paper resume. I think it's important to keep both and keep them both up to date.
Eliza, thanks. Okay, we are going to move on. Now this is for our audience, what we do with work-based learning. What advice would you give us in networking with you, like us as work-based people, out in the business world, to set up internships and job shadows with you? We talked a little bit about that in the hall, so who wants to start that?
We do internships, and we have one employee that handles all of them. And on the career website, it tells about them, where to go, how to sign up. So they have to be 18 years old, and they can shadow, or they can do an internship. Internships come from like MTech or Provo College, because they need those hours. So we do a lot of those.
I would add just from the chamber side, networking, you say that and I'm like, where's the network? Let's go. I would encourage you all, if there's companies that are close by, ones that you know or you want to have to be a big supporter to send your students to, you got to go network with them. You got to go where they're networking, get to know where their HR manager is, who they are, and then maybe attend a couple of chamber luncheons if you can, here and there. And I know as teachers, it's hard to break free, and maybe some CTE counselors, it's a little bit easier because you're not teaching classes all the time. But if you can network with the companies and get to know them, you'll find that they're more than happy to talk to you about internships. How do I get some students to learn about your industry? Business owners love to talk about their business with anyone who will listen. And so if you want to get those connections, you're going to have to do some footwork so that they know your name and they know how they can help. And right now, there's a shift, and it's a big shift. We've heard the governor in the last couple of years, he started talking about post-secondary education instead of just get a 4-year degree in college. And that's huge for some of our students, right? If you want to have certain companies involved with your job shadows, with your internships, and giving your students that opportunity, you're going to need to get to know them so that when you call them, you say, I've got this great student, they'd be perfect to come work for you. You know what they're looking for, and you're setting them up for success, not just the company, but also the student themselves. That would be my advice.
Any advice on job shadowing? Like, we were thinking outside the box a little bit, like since Zoom has become a thing, and can you let someone job shadow you as you four sit up here, you know, would that be a problem outside of work even, or, you know, during your lunch break and have them shadow?
We could, but HIPAA is really big. But I was telling Andrew that we're separate, our building, we're still on the same campus, so it's separate. So they can shadow us if, you know, they want to know what it, like, they say, how can I train like you do? Where do you get your information?
Yeah.
I'd let someone come and sit with me.
Well, maybe not come in directly, but over Zoom. So they're not walking inside your building. They, you know, because like there was this girl who wanted to do dermatology, and I called, and she called me right back and said, I'm sorry, we do not let high schoolers come into our facility to do job shadows. And then I called her right back and said, well, this would just be for 20 minutes, 30 minutes over Zoom. Can you take time to just talk with this student? She was only a freshman, and that just made her day. It made my day too, because that's what we do in our job as well. Anyway, that's what we love, is that these kids make these connections. So is a Zoom thing something that we can possibly see in the future?
Yes.
That's how we're training now, our employees. They go to meeting or Zoom, so.
Shadowing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've worked with Nebo, Alpine, and Provo school districts on interns coming in, and usually what we try to do, especially like with job shadowing, is, you know, there's sales meetings or marketing meetings that are going on all the time, so they can, you know, if the schedules align, then they just join those meetings, and most of them are over, you know, Google Meet now, so it's really easy for them to dial in from wherever they're at and participate in that meeting and see kind of how things work there. And I know our interns, we even give them assignments, you know, so like marketing, if they're interested in graphic design, or a video department, if they want to try to help out create a video, then there's all sorts of things that they can get into to try to experience. So.
A couple of things, like I like what he says. The only thing I would say is that they'll probably be totally lost. I mean, let's be honest, and they won't understand the context of the meeting, but it's okay. That's not necessarily the point, right? It's for them to have an experience and understand that this is what meetings are like, and this is, you will expect data to be flying, and everyone's reporting on different things. So like that'll still expose them to that environment, so then they can be prepared for it. So I think that's not a bad thing. Also, touching on the networking thing, a lot of like she said, a lot of companies are interested in talking about their business. I think the best thing that as educators, and you're trying to set these up, the best thing you do is give clear, kind of like a clear expectation of what it would look like if we did it. So if they go, hey, do you want an internship? As me, it would be one way. For you, it's a totally different way. You know, and every company is different. But if you say, hey, we are looking for some internship, we're looking for 3 hours of time, doesn't need to be paid, or it needs to be paid, or whatever, and like kind of outline kind of the expectations, and we're looking for someone to do something in business or HR or this, and you kind of said, this is what we're hoping for, that'll be a lot easier for us as individuals to go, oh, I can do that one. And it'd be a lot faster for us than to go, what do I have need for? Because we all have needs, tons of needs, but having an idea of where we might be able to pocket them and put them in, that's a little trickier and takes time. But if you were to give really clear, this is what we're hoping for, that would help us, and you probably have higher success rate by communicating along those lines.
And networking is work. It is intentional. You know, I actually put it on my calendar, say, hey, take some time to go to LinkedIn and try to be, you know, there with people. So you networking. So like if you had networked with me on LinkedIn, you know, we had an event in my company yesterday where the Black Chamber representatives of the Black Chamber of Commerce came down. We had this, we call it Rev University, where they come down, they do a panel discussion like this and talk about things that they're doing. So if you're connected with me, you saw that this event happened. There's this video, an hour-long video, right, on this subject, you know, diversity and inclusion. And then, you know, the speakers are there too. So now you can get in touch with them, or your students can get in touch with them. And just, you can find all sorts of good connections that way. But it is intentional. You got to work at it and set aside some time to be to add value to my feed, because most people connect with me on LinkedIn or trying to sell me something. So you have to differentiate yourself from that, because I kind of ignore that most of the time. But you add value, you comment and say, this is great, and I have this and this is how it fits in. And so networking is work. You got to put time into it. Sorry.
I just wanted to circle back to your question about job shadowing. The beauty of being able to job shadow through Zoom is that if I had somebody come and say, okay, we're going to go talk about this golf tournament, we're getting ready to plan it, you're going to sit in on this meeting. The beauty of it is that I would let them know, chat me if you have any questions as we go. And when you're sitting in a live meeting with everyone at the table, it's hard for them to be like, hey, what does that mean? But they can do that on chat, and that might actually open some doors to make job shadowing a little bit easier in some of these industries.
They will be lost, yeah.
It's all new stuff. I mean, this is a big year we've been doing it, or last year. So I love these ideas. One more question.
Cher, can I ask a
yes,
question?
Go ahead, Jan.
Okay, all of you mentioned networking. Do you have a preferred method for people to connect with you, like on LinkedIn or call on the phone or send you an email or just drop by your business? Okay, what's the best way for us?
Good, real quick, let's go through all four of you, a quick best method.
Okay, well, personally, I'm a personal contact kind of person, so I actually do like to communicate with people directly. And I know it's funny because a lot of people it's like that often it's uncomfortable. It's like, oh, well, it's not what I want. Like it becomes uncomfortable for people. But I actually don't mind. I'm always willing to talk. So I like phone calls. And then LinkedIn is great because that is the purpose of that platform, is to network.
Right.
And I like it in person, a phone call. That's why I told Zoom, that's great. I'll talk to them about my job and how much fun it is, or I wouldn't have been there so long,
And with COVID, you can't really go into every single business and stop and have a 20-minute discussion. So LinkedIn's great. I would use LinkedIn for that, but also reaching out any way that you can, call, email, text, whatever. I love talking to people, so I that's things that I do is I'm like, you don't love me, but you'll love me too,
Yeah.
Jason, love it.
I'm old. I like email. Phone calls. I'm usually the one, like, if it's important, they'll leave a voicemail and then I'll get back to them. It's kind of my own. But so email. I'm not very good at social media, so LinkedIn. I'm active on LinkedIn for my company, but I don't check.
We don't always have everyone's email, so to find you on LinkedIn and find your email there would be better.
Yeah, I was gonna say the hard part is contact, right?
My company's website, we list everybody in the company, so you can contact us right there too. So.
And LinkedIn has a cool thing where if you go in there and you hit your account, there's a little QR code in the search bar.
Yeah,
you just click that and it pulls up a camera where you can scan someone else's QR code from their LinkedIn app, or they can scan yours and it connects you both right there.
Okay. Well, I know there's lots of questions from the crowd, so we're going to do this cool breakout session that I dreamed up, and that's the reason why I'm the moderator right now, is because that was my thought. So I know you have lots of different questions for these guys, so we're going to let them come down into the audience and walk around and just raise your hand and they'll come by, and I'll just start you out with a question if you don't have one for them. And it is, in what ways can we use LinkedIn profiles to do our jobs with work-based learning, and how could these guys give us advice on that? Or if you have other questions, feel free. Any other creative ideas you've thought of. So we're going to let them hop down. Let's give them a hand real fast for giving this discussion. And we'll just continue that discussion for the next, let's see. Actually, lunch isn't until 11:30, so we almost have a half an hour. So that's a long time, but I know you guys like to talk, so this will be our talking period. One more thing I want to announce on Zoom. The breakouts, you guys can talk in the breakout rooms for the next 15 minutes, and then you get a longer lunch break. So, all right, or we might be done a little early in here. Thank you so much, and let's go ahead. What was the question again? In what ways can we use our LinkedIn profiles to do our jobs as work-based learning? Like we're up in our profiles today. They're going to look awesome. Now, how can we utilize them? And we're going to get some advice from you guys as we go down there. So. Does that work? Is my idea going to work? If somebody raise their hand and these guys will run.
So breakout rooms, we're going to send you right now.
That's right.
Yeah, really.
Do some crowd surfing.
Oh, do we have any questions? Oh, there's chat rooms. They're going to talk. Do we want one of them to go talk in the chat room? That might be an idea too. Everybody.
There'll be a number of different
breakout rooms, but yeah, they can surf through those.
Well, maybe even Becky could go down there and help you want in. Sure. Becky, yeah, go down by David and just see if there's any questions.
Actually, if you just want to stay right there, I'll
Stay
just
right
zoom in
there,
on you.
okay. All right, the rest of us, we're gonna mingle in the crowd if that's okay. Just, and then I don't mind if you guys talk.
I was like, I can join the Zoom call and chat.
There you go.
Sitting here silent is hard. And, you know, questions answered. I know Brecken has a question, I know you do.
Oh, I would love to question.
I was gonna say, I know, please, yes.
I would love to chat.
I'll take one.
Okay, so let's put you in this room. You know what? Come on down here, Rick.
Okay.
Come on down here. Yeah, I will avert the camera to right here, the FaceTime HD camera. I'll move this one over here.
Where do you want me?
I'll just sit right here. And I'll move the camera over here to you. And then what we can do is assign. See on the side.
What do you ask lunch? You have the others to do.
Absolutely killing me.
And I know it's 61 per minute. Sure.
Can assign this to you. Remove the main section And I'll go to our internal mic here. Okay, so built-in microphone. Hi, group. How are you? We have one of our panelists going to join us today. So if you guys want to ask questions here, we'll be able to do it for you here. Can someone say something? Make sure I got the speaker here working for her.
Can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Is this thing on?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
So I was just talking about how at Corner Canyon, our internships are setting up their profiles on LinkedIn, and each week they will be posting something new. How valuable is that for them as they're starting their work experience, internship experience, for future employers?
You know, I think it's actually quite relevant. I know that you've heard two different things, like resumes are dead, LinkedIn people don't look at, but it really depends on the industry. But I would say LinkedIn is probably going to be the future of where things are going, and so to get them in the habit of posting things regularly is going to keep them relevant in those news feeds of the people they connect with as they meet new people. So, and I would fully encourage them, you know, to let people who are looking at their stuff say, hey, I'm on LinkedIn. Here's where you can find me. And here's where you can learn more about me. And just kind of drive them there if that's where their updates are going to be, like the most up-to-date thing. So I would say it's highly relevant. Anyone else? So are you guys all with Corner Canyon? Just you. Okay, where's everybody else from?
I'm from Granite.
Oh, nice. That's where I live. It's Granite District.
I'm from Twilla County.
Okay, awesome. Very cool.
And Lisa Willis, are you on this? I'm right here. Okay. Are you guys using LinkedIn for your internship program?
We are. My students just got started this past week, and so they haven't posted yet, but the plan is that they'll all post next week, kind of their first day of interning.
Nice. I think that's important, just to get them in the habit and used to doing it, and so they learn a difference between social media and professional social media. I think that will be important for them to learn too.
Okay, I have a concern about under the age of 18. Can they go ahead and post it and be okay?
So on social media, it depends. You'd have to look at the guidelines for LinkedIn. When I did the entrepreneurship program, we had students that were 11 years old up to 18. And I kind of did the cutoff at 16 because that's when they could start really applying for jobs. And just said, once you turn 16, 17, you might want to look at doing LinkedIn, but always make sure your parents are okay with it. Typically on a social media, they have to be at least 14 years of age to join, to have their stuff out there on the internet. So before you have them just like sign up, I would make sure their parents are okay with it.
So, hi, this is Elena. I'm from Granite also. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
One of the things that I was thinking about is a way that we could use LinkedIn for students is kind of like a social network of people in their lives that they can start connecting with. So when they are looking for that internship opportunity, a lot of times that comes from people that the student knows personally that may have a company. And so they can reach out to that person on LinkedIn, to pursue something. Hey, I'm interested in engineering. I see that you work at an engineering firm. Do you have any, job shadows or things like that? So that was just a thought I had.
Yeah, I think that's important. And as you have presenters come, maybe you have someone from engineering come, or someone from the construction trade, or someone from a lawyer's office. If they're coming to present to your students at some point, and just tell them, hey, they're going to ask if they can connect with you on LinkedIn, so they know. And they'll be more than not, they'll be happy to connect with them and just say, yeah, keep in touch. I want to see where your career goes, see what you do with it. But it's important to help them know that it's okay to connect with people that they meet on LinkedIn. Sometimes they don't think that they should connect with older people, I guess, with like professionals and things like that. But one of my students that I had to tell her, she was 11 and we were in the GoEd yearly thing where they do that update. And I told her we couldn't leave until everybody got like 10 business cards from people in the room. And she came to me just almost in tears saying, hey, no one wants to talk to me because I'm a kid. And I said, well, aren't you breathing the same air that they are? Aren't you standing on the same carpet? You go up to them and square your shoulders and shake their hand, match their grip, and you say, I'm Willow, and I'm going to be an owner of my own company someday. And she walked out of there with the most cards. I think she networked the entire room after that. It's just helping them have the confidence and be like, yeah, I'm going to connect with them. I want to follow their company. And some of the people.
I love that idea, like for the guest speakers to keep in touch, or, to foster that connection for the student. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And tell your students to find companies they want to maybe connect with in the future and start following them on LinkedIn right now. Most of them have a LinkedIn page.
For me, my problem is the opposite of the young girl. Is that I just have this rule. I don't connect with anybody till they've been out of high school for a year. So this piece for the internship class is really hard for me. I don't actually teach the internship.
Well, and as an educator, you guys have to walk that really fine line. And I think that's a fine policy to have and say, hey, once you graduate and you turn 18, I'm happy to connect with you on LinkedIn. And just set, you don't have to be awkward about it or, be like, no, I'm not going to connect with you. Just be like, no, that when you turn 18, I'm happy to connect with you because you're an adult. I'm an adult at that point. They'll understand that. Or they should anyway.
Hey, this question is for you, Christine. In your experience using LinkedIn, what about professional organizations that might be a professional organization of medical assistants or things like that? Do you have them linked to any kind of professional type organizational bodies like that?
Okay, now I'm unmuted. That's a really good question. I have not given that any thought, but we definitely should be having students that are interested with their pathways in mind. That's a great.
Awesome. Well, I think you guys are doing great work. Keep it up. You got the future in your hands. So there's a lot of companies that are watching what's coming out and how they can help. They're eager to help you guys get the best workforce coming out of high school. So keep it up. Oh, Christine, you're on mute.
I was having a hard time hearing when they were introducing you as a panel, and I know you look familiar to me, Becky, and I don't know why.
I used to run the Youth Entrepreneurship Program, the Young Entrepreneurs Academy for Sandy Chamber a few years ago.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Driving me nuts. It's like, who is she? Well, I know her.
Oh, thank you. That's fun. Fun to make that connection. I think we're going to another breakout room. Thanks for letting us peep in for a minute.
You guys are welcome to continue to talk amongst yourselves until we bring you back in here. But I got to go back to the main room to control the rest of the breakouts. Well, thank you, ladies.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
thank you. Good to see you all.
Christy, are you?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Oh my gosh, you're almost like my 7th graders. It's like when they don't respond, I just stand there and wait. So thank you for responding a little bit quicker than my 7th graders. But hey, how's the conference going for you guys so far? Can you hear and understand me? Okay, I'm using my cheerleading voice and the fact that I have to yell at 7th graders. Anyway, so here we are. I get the privilege of giving out the awards that were nominated for this year's various titles for our work-based learning. And so I'm so excited. So I apologize. I don't know everybody. I know very few, actually, because I'm in a middle school. So I don't get to deal with adults. I get to deal with 7th graders who are only 12, who are still just out of elementary. And that's your cue to laugh. Oh, I've got to work on my act. Much better. Okay. Come up so that we can present your award. And do you have someone that can take a picture with you, Jan?
Reckon, will you take a picture? Or Janice?
Yeah. So we'll have you come up on stage. I'm going to speak from here if that's okay. I'll have the award winners come up on stage and take a picture with your award and with Jan. All right. So, do we have Justin here? Is Justin here? No Justin yet. And if they arrive in a little bit, we'll certainly acknowledge them. Is Jeremy here?
Or even if they're not here, will you just say what award they?
Sure. So Teacher of the Year was given to Justin Wanless out of Washington School District. So if you know him, please congratulate him because that is such a huge deal. Post-secondary Teacher of the Year, Jeremy Farmer from Weber State University. Anybody know Jeremy? I do. Please congratulate him.
For those of you who are online, this is in Jan Jardine's presentation.
I'm sorry. You're good. Okay. Now, is Anya here? Boy, we're not doing very good, are we? New CTE teacher of the year, Anya Burtis out of Evergreen Junior High. What an honor to be chosen as a new CTE teacher. She's probably completely overwhelmed with what's going on and still being nominated as a new CTE teacher. That's absolutely fabulous. Educator of the year, do we have Tyler? No, Tyler? Oh my gosh, I'm gotten 0.
You might have scared them off because you said they had to get a picture with you.
Well, I didn't see anybody sneak out, but maybe they ducked down. Maybe they're hiding. Tyler's out of Uinta Basin Technical College, my hometown. So, woo woo! I grew up in Vernal, love that area. So they're doing great things out there. They've got a beautiful technical college building out there now. Utah Career Guidance Award is Marissa here. From Uinta High. Maybe they got snowed in over Daniels Canyon. I don't know, maybe. But that's, we will definitely, whoever is not here, we will definitely get their awards to them. Is Dave Gardner here? He has received the Administrator of the Year out of Washington School District. I know Pepper is here. Pepper, Pepper Polson, Lifetime Achievement Award from Bingham High School. Pepper is one of the most amazing humans I know.
Thank you, Lori.
And we dressed alike. She not only is funnier than me, but she's also very inspiring. She cares about her teachers. I know this because I used to work with her at Bingham, miss her terribly, but I am so excited that I get to give this to you. Love you to pieces. Picture time with, okay.
Oh, sorry, which way do you want to go that?
Maybe I'll have you turn to me. Okay, good.
So if I gotta come up, my Zoom is back. Okay, perfect.
All right. Business Education Partnership Award, Barrows Orthodontics. No. I do know that to receive this award, they have probably gone above and beyond. I don't know Barrows personally, but I know that they have gone above and beyond to support work-based learning and the schools in their surrounding areas. I know that without our businesses, work-based learning would not happen. Without our parents and volunteers, work-based learning would not happen. So we owe so much to our businesses, our communities, and to our parents for volunteering and helping out, making our work-based learning various activities a huge success. So thank you, Barrows, and we will make sure that we get that to them. Is Wendy here? Wendy, come on up. Wendy Checketts is nominated and won the Champion for CTE Award from the Jordan School District. Trying to find yours, Wendy. Okay. Congratulations. All right.
I know. You need all of these and you're a celebrity. Okay, take that. Okay. Thank you.
Is Alan here? Has received the Carl Perkins Community Service Award from Stout Building Contractors. Again, without our community, work-based learning would not be very successful or at all. So it may be that several of these, because they did tell me they were coming, may be showing up around lunchtime. We were going to do this during lunch, but because the school required us to separate you, were you naughty? because now we have to eat lunch in 2 separate rooms. No, I know, it's because of this lovely thing. We felt like we wanted to try and give the awards out with everybody in here. So if they show up, I don't know, maybe we'll do a hop back and forth in each lunchroom and just kind of reintroduce them so that everybody can see and acknowledge them. How's that sound?
One more round of applause for all of our